All right, welcome back, guys. We are today talking about confronting the post-Cold War era, and we're looking into just after George W. Bush was elected president. We can see this first slide. Jump right in here. We can see this first slide, and this is a picture of September 11, 2001 in New York City. And any American that is probably over the age of 30 or 35 will be able to tell you where they were on September 11. Now, some of my students who are not 30 or 35 can also remember this, and this is their first memory is of the Twin Towers bombing in New York City. But it wasn't only in New York City. Washington, D.C. was bombed, and there was a plane that crashed in the middle of Pennsylvania as well. So it was not a good day for the United States. And we watched these images over and over and over on the news until all Americans had seen them hundreds and hundreds of times. Now, to walk you through this timeline here, on the next slide, at 8:46 in the morning, the North Tower hit. The plane hit the North Tower, which is the tower on the right. At 9:03, the second plane hit the South Tower, and that's the tower on the left that's just exploding. At 9:37, the plane crashed into the Pentagon, which is in Washington, D.C., and that's the head of all military organizations in the United States. At 9:58, the South Tower falls. That's the one on the left. The South Tower falls first. And at 10:03, United Airlines 93 crashes into a field in Pennsylvania. And at 10:28, the North Tower falls, and that's the one on the right. Now, I remember where I was at. I was teaching school in New York at the time, not in New York City, but in New York State. And I remember watching this on TV happen live with my students and with some other teachers, and it was very dramatic in 2001. On this next slide, we see a picture. There were so many tragedies on September 11, 2001, and so many really poignant pictures and disturbing pictures and gruesome pictures. And this is one that's haunting, a haunting picture. You kind of wonder, who was this man? This man is falling. He jumped or fell out of the Twin Towers, and it's estimated that between 100 and 200 people jumped or fell that day on September 11 because they were going to be burned and there was nowhere to go. In this case, this man, it looks like he's plummeting head down, but actually there's a series of pictures and he's not just diving, he's tumbling, and this picture happened to catch him as he's plummeting straight down. Now what you'll notice to the right side of the picture, inside the building, is people crowded into the window space to try to get fresh air because they were afraid they were going to die. And this is going to be very high up because these people were at or above the level where the plane hit. If it was below, they would have just gotten onto the stairs and escaped the building. But these people are trapped. And so this is a very haunting photograph. And some people believe that they know who this person is, that perhaps he worked at a restaurant near the top of the World Trade Center. On the next slide, we see Bush's response to this, and that is Bush International. His response is the USA Patriot Act. Now, each of the letters of that stands for something. Uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. It's a law passed in 2001. Now, a lot of things that this did is very controversial when this was passed, because even though Americans want to catch the bad guys, who did this to the United States? We want to catch the bad guys, but we also many Americans believed that it was an invasion of privacy. And in the United States, the CIA cannot spy on American people. They can spy on everyone else, but not American citizens. The FBI, on the other hand, can investigate American citizens. In the FBI and the CIA, the information they have is siloed, which means that they cannot be shared very easily. And if we had had the FBI and CIA share information, we might have been able to stop September 11. That's what some people believe. In reality, who knows if we could have stopped September 11. But now the FBI and CIA can share information with one another. And a lot of Americans are fearful of this because the CIA cannot spy on American citizens. But if they want to learn information about an American citizen, they can ask the FBI, and the FBI can get that information. Now, theoretically, that's not supposed to happen, but the laws made it a lot easier for that for it to work that way. So very controversial. Now, after September 11, the bombing, most Americans were very supportive of the president, George Bush. And within just a few weeks, we have soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan was governed by an extreme radical group of Islamic people called the Taliban. And just within literally a few weeks, we have people on the ground, and we're pushing to overthrow the Taliban because they are hiding or harboring or helping Osama bin Laden to hide. And Osama bin Laden was thought to be and was mostly responsible for September 11. Where things became a little more controversial was, you can see this picture of a soldier walking through the streets, was in Iraq. Now, on March 20, 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. Very controversial because most Americans would hear George Bush talk about why we're going to invade, and those Americans were divided. Some wanted to invade Iraq if they were Republican, and some didn't want to invade Iraq if they were Democrat. And the reason that George Bush wanted to invade Iraq, he told the people, the American people, was because Iraq was hiding weapons of mass destruction, chemical and biological weapons, and that he was helping to support Osama bin Laden. And most Americans didn't necessarily understand how Iraq was connected to Afghanistan, but some Americans certainly looked at George Bush and said, this was your father's war. Your father was going to overthrow Saddam Hussein, and Saddam Hussein, who was the chairman, the dictator of Iraq, threatened to kill and tried to kill your father. And most people believed in America that George Bush was trying to finish his father's war or kill Saddam Hussein. Now, very controversially, if you were to ask George W. Bush today, he would say, no, we firmly believed that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and that was what we were focused on, is protecting America. And only history will determine whether or not George Bush is right or whether or not George Bush is wrong. But from 2003 onwards, the United States has been at war for 15 years with Iraq and also in Afghanistan. But only just a couple of weeks after, I mean, literally, we're talking about, starts in March of 2003, and just about a month and a half later, the United States, under George Bush, claims mission accomplished, the war is over, 172 Americans have been killed. Since that time, more than 5,000 have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, so maybe mission wasn't accomplished. And George Bush later said that was maybe one of his biggest mistakes of his presidency, is communicating to people that the war was over when actually it wasn't over. When Obama becomes president, there's some things that happen and that in that transition. Now, we know that Obama is the first black president, and that's a great thing for Americans. But when he comes into office, he inherits two major crises, and one of them is the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that we could say is two by themselves, so maybe three crises. And the third one is the global financial collapse, or the GFC, as I've heard it called in China. Unemployment went up. People don't have jobs. Stock market goes down. The amount of money that people make goes down. The economy in the United States and in the world is just in shambles. It's devastated. And George Bush tries to begin to repair that. And as he leaves office, Barack Obama comes into office, and he has to repair that. And both presidents really did quite a remarkable job in trying to turn the economy around. And when Obama left office in 2017, January, the economy was in really very good shape. We talk more about that in the next lesson. But this moment for the United States where we elect the first African-American president is something incredible. So we can see on the next slide, we can see people are so emotional. This is the night on 2008 when President Obama wins in November. People are crying. African Americans certainly have something to be proud of, and Americans have something to be proud of for electing a black president. Now, understand Barack Obama, we call him an African American president, But he's equally black and white. His father was black and his mother was white. His father was from Kenya. His mother was from Kansas. And so he's equally both. But he marries an African-American woman, and his children certainly are the product of Barack and Michelle Obama, are also identify as black. Or that's how America perceives them, as black, as Barack Obama. And I wonder, I think, and as Americans, we have to wonder, if we could go back to Mississippi or Alabama or South Carolina or Virginia and take some slave owners from 1850 and make them time travel up to 2010 or 2008 and to see the victory parade and the victory speech that Barack Obama gives, what they would think about having a black man as a president. Well, I hope that they would be excited, but of course we know they would not be excited. They would not have accepted that at all. But America has come a long way, and it was a great thing to finally elect an African American as president. So, all right, we're gonna go on to the next chapter with the next lesson, and we'll see you guys next time. All right.